The morning sun hits the glass towers of downtown, another ordinary summer day for the salaryman inside. At his desk, Song Jin-seong keeps typing, but his mind won't let go of what happened yesterday. His fingers move on autopilot while he replays that strange moment over and over. The night before, alone at home, a glowing blue window had suddenly popped up in front of him. He leaned in close, his heart racing, asking himself what this shop window even was. He tapped the floating screen frantically, but nothing worked. A can of tuna showed a price of 2 coins and his balance read 0. He swiped again and froze. A zombie skull-crushing hammer was listed for 5 coins. This kind of system, this kind of shop, he'd only ever seen it in apocalypse webtoons. He pictured bloodied zombies swarming a ruined city and immediately told himself no way, that was impossible. By the next morning at work, he'd convinced himself he was just tired and hallucinating from stress. That delusion shatters when a voice roars across the office, "Song Jin-seong, you bastard." Chief Choi storms in from the hallway, and Jin-song barely looks up. He's heard this before. The manager leans over his desk, screaming about why Hanbiel Trading is calling him directly. Jin-song answers calmly that the client didn't submit their documents, so it had to be reviewed again. Choi slams his palm on the desk, the sound echoing, daring him to talk back. Jin-song doesn't flinch. Inside, he's already cataloging the truth. This is the same man who failed to get promoted twice because of his own incompetence. And now he's throwing a tantrum in front of the entire team to save face. Choi's face reddens, about to explode. A soft voice cuts in. Seona holds out a cold drink, telling the manager to have this and cool off. Instantly, Choi's rage melts into a slimy grin. He grabs both of her hands with both of his, thanking her a little too enthusiastically. She subtly slides her hands free, her discomfort obvious. He leans in close, inviting her to dinner after work, saying it'd be a waste to go home dressed so nicely. Seona forces a polite smile and tells him she already has plans today. Defeated, Choi finally walks away, and she exhales, bowing her head slightly in relief. From his chair, Jin-song asks if she's okay, and she snaps back, asking if he's out of his mind for dealing with that man. She turns away, still flustered. He just looks at her and quietly says thank you for helping earlier. Later, he escapes to the rooftop alone, staring at the sky and thinking he just wants to go home. He lights a cigarette, bitterly reminding himself he can't quit this damn company because changing jobs is too tough right now. He decides he'll at least buy Seona a coffee later to repay her. A voice calls his name, and he turns to find Seona right behind him. He's surprised, asking what she's doing up here since she doesn't smoke. She says she came up to get away from the manager. She complains that a client skipped out without paying, and now Choi is picking fights with everyone. Jin-song nods, saying it was a good thing she got away from him. She vents further, annoyed that he keeps insisting on eating together and touching her when he's not even paying. Then she shivers and asks if he doesn't think it's a bit cold for summer. He shrugs it off, saying it just feels cool compared to the usual heat. She insists it's not just cool, it's abnormal, showing him the goosebumps on her arms even in long sleeves. He teases her for being sensitive to the cold. Frustrated he doesn't believe her, she pulls out her phone, saying she saw a video about this on social media. She shows him the post. It's snowing in Africa, and it has over 9,000 likes. His expression hardens as he watches the impossible footage. She looks at him seriously, saying at this point it feels like something has gone wrong with the world. His phone vibrates in his hand at the same moment hers does. They both stare at the screen as an emergency alert pops up. It's a cold wave warning issued because of a sudden drop in temperature, urging people to take precautions. Seona whispers that it must be a glitch, right? A cold wave warning in June has to be a joke. Jin-seong doesn't answer. He holds out his palm as something cold lands on him. He looks down, confused. Seona touches her hair, feeling it too. Slowly together, they look up at the sky. White flakes are falling gently around them. It's snowing. Hours later, the city is transformed. Night has fallen and snow blankets the rooftop. Down below, the streets are a mess of flashing lights and accidents from the heavy summer snow. Jin-song stands by the window with a coffee, muttering that the world has gone completely off its rocker. He decides the traffic will be a nightmare, so he should wrap things up and head home. He jabs the elevator button repeatedly, growing impatient. He hugs himself, shivering violently. It's freezing inside the building now. Fed up with waiting, he turns toward the stairwell. He mutters to himself about the weather being all over the place as he walks. Behind him, the elevator doors finally slide shut with a heavy thud. He stops and turns back, surprised. The elevator wasn't broken after all. The doors open again on an empty car, and the hallway is dead silent. He steps out into the cold corridor, his breath visible, wondering why it's so quiet. It shouldn't be this quiet at this hour. A sense of dread starts to creep in. He thinks about a possible blackout, and his nerves finally start to spike. He decides to forget wrapping up work and just grab his stuff to head home early. As he opens his office door, he hears it, a faint sound like metal scraping on concrete. He freezes mid-step, his ears straining. He tells himself it's nothing, that he should just get his bag and get out. He walks into the dark sales team area, his footsteps the only sound. He looks around, certain there were still a few people here before he went to the roof. With the office this dark, everything feels even more uneasy. He notices a desk and frowns. Why is it so messy all of a sudden? Papers are scattered everywhere, like someone left in a panic. He wonders if they haven't left for the day, because it looks like they bolted out in a hurry. He calls out quietly, "Anyone here?" His voice disappears into the darkness. Between the strange noise and the abandoned desks, he's got a very bad feeling. He decides to hurry, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. A dark silhouette stands motionless at the far end of the office, backlit by the emergency light. Jinsong's head snaps toward it, his body tensing. He hears a soft shuffling behind him and whips around. His foot comes down on something hard and slick on the floor. He looks down and sees an employee ID card lying in a small pool of blood. He steps back in disgust, recognizing it as belonging to a coworker. He crouches down to pick it up, his hand trembling slightly. He turns the card over. It's Kim Hyun-sok's ID, and it's covered in fresh, wet blood. A deafening crash erupts behind him as something slams into a desk. He spins around and locks eyes with it. A blood-soaked zombie in a company shirt lunges straight for his throat, and his mind finally screams the truth he saw in that shop window yesterday. He freezes mid-step because the hand reaching for him isn't human anymore. Blood covers the man's shirt, his eyes are dead, and he moves like something that should have stayed down. Instinct takes over, and he shoves back hard, putting every ounce of panic into that one push. His mind can't process it, but his mouth forms the only word that fits. Terror hits him all at once, sweat running cold down his face as he realizes what he's looking at. The thing stumbles in the hallway, leaving a trail behind it, while he backs away toward the stairs. A sound from the office makes him spin around, his whole body on edge. He grabs the first thing heavy enough to hurt, a chair, and brings it down with a desperate scream. His breath catches, eyes wide, because for a second he actually thought he might die in his own office. He slides to the floor against the wall, hands shaking as he tries to steady himself. He pulls his phone out, fingers still trembling. An emergency alert lights up the screen at 6:37 p.m., warning about a mutated rabies strain spreading rapidly through downtown Seoul. He runs a hand through his hair, trying to think straight through the adrenaline. Rabies doesn't explain that thing. That was no sick person. That was a straight-up zombie. Alone in the dark stairwell, he stares at his phone and asks himself what the hell is actually happening. He opens the forum, and it's pure chaos. People reporting old men smashing faces into doors, someone bitten in Daegu, snow falling out of season, moms acting weird after bites. The glow from the screen is the only light on his face as he scrolls faster, looking for answers. Then the signal glitches, static eating the page. He taps frantically, but the connection is already dying. The bars disappear completely, and the reality sinks in. He's cut off. He covers his face with both hands, the phone's light reflecting off his panicked eyes. The cold bites through his thin office shirt, and he curls up on the stairs, shivering uncontrollably. He forces himself to stand, knowing sitting still means freezing. He checks the battery, 83%. If he's careful, maybe 2 days. A noise upstairs makes him look up, alert again. He steadies his breathing, turns on his flashlight, and pushes the door open. The office is empty and silent, but he moves carefully anyway. His eyes land on the drawers. If anyone left clothes, they'd be there. He yanks one open and finds a spare shirt and tie. He buttons it up quickly, the extra layer already helping. He keeps searching, muttering for food, for anything. Then his face lights up. He found something. Inside an abandoned bag are snacks, a thermos of water, even a blanket. He slings it over his shoulder, silently thanking whoever left it behind. He heads back out, supplies in tow. He pauses at a storage closet, a bitter laugh escaping him. Inside are golf clubs, the executive's prized set, and for once that bastard's hobby is actually useful. He drops his bag by the stairwell for a moment. He wraps the blanket around himself like a cloak, teeth still chattering. He walks to the window and looks out at the world ending in real time. Outside, cars burn in the snow while figures stumble between them. The city already lost. He sees his own reflection in the frosted glass and knows no rescue is coming through that blizzard. The cold forces him to sit, hugging his knees to conserve heat. His body shakes so hard his jaw clenches. Desperate, he opens that strange shop window from yesterday. Winter clothing, 3 coins. He stares at it, frustration building because he has no idea how to earn a single coin. He looks away, the hopelessness settling deeper. Snow lashes against the building, white and endless. From outside, he'd look like just another trapped office worker waiting to die. Then footsteps echo down the hall, slow and deliberate. He freezes, listening to each step approach the stairwell door. From above, he's just a shivering figure with a blanket, completely vulnerable. His heart hammers as he whispers the word to himself, zombies, and his grip tightens on the club. He throws off the blanket and charges, ready to swing first. His eyes lock on the doorknob as it starts to turn. He winds up with the golf club, every muscle tense. Someone bursts through the doorway. He raises the club high over his head, about to bring it down. A voice screams for him to stop, hands flying up in panic. He stops mid-swing, breathing hard, staring at the man in front of him. He lowers the club slightly, recognizing the face. The obnoxious guy from sales. The man, Deputy Song, sits down next to him and says it was total chaos in the break room. He explains how he locked the door when the banging started. Suhan listens, thinking it's completely useless information right now. The other man keeps talking, nervous energy pouring out. They sit in awkward silence for a moment, 2 strangers in an apocalypse. Kim Juman asks if he has any food, saying he's starving. Suhan hesitates, then hands over his thermos for water but refuses to share his emergency ration. Juman reaches out and grabs his wrist, his grip too tight. His eyes are strange, pleading as he asks again if he's sure he doesn't have any food. Something cold settles in Suhan's gut. Something is off about this guy. He turns away to refill the bottle at the sink, trying to shake the feeling. Juman is drenched in sweat despite the freezing temperature, his shirt sticking to it. Suhan watches him in the mirror, telling himself he's just being paranoid. Then Juman lunges from behind, arms outstretched. Suhan spins and smashes the metal thermos straight into his face. He shouts his name, kicking him back while grabbing his golf club. Juman crashes to the floor hard, but he's already getting up. His eyes roll white, foam at his mouth, growling. He was fine a minute ago. Suhan doesn't hesitate. He grips the club with both hands. He brings the club down in a wide, brutal arc. The impact cracks through bone as he hits him again and again. He screams for him to die, driving his foot down to keep him pinned. Blood splatters across the tiles with each final blow. When it's over, he's left bent over, gasping for air, hands shaking. Then a blue light flashes in front of his eyes. The system finally responds, and the reward for nearly dying is insulting. 1 single coin. 1 zombie, 1 coin, while a can of tuna costs 2 and winter clothes costs 3. He risked his life fighting to survive, and all the apocalypse gives him back is pocket change. Anger tightens in his jaw, but there's no one to complain to. He forces the frustration down, because in this world, getting mad doesn't keep you alive. Then he notices it on the corpse, the unmistakable marks of teeth on the wrist. He sighs. He knew it. The man looked perfectly fine before, but from now on he can't trust appearances anymore. Alone in the cold office, he lights the cigarette he found earlier, letting the small burn be his only comfort. It's a shitty situation, but at least for a moment he can breathe. A sudden scream tears through the night outside, and he flinches by the window. Wrapped in a blanket against the ice age cold, he presses closer to see. Down below, a survivor swings a bat wildly, surrounded by the dead. It doesn't matter how hard he fights, they pile on him in seconds. Another one falls, torn apart in the snow just like the others. He's watched this same scene play out over and over. It's already the 3rd day, and the sound makes his stomach turn. His phone battery is down to 2%, so he's been saving power just watching. He's seen people try to escape several times, and every single one of them turned into zombies. He lights another cigarette, the smoke curling in the dark as he makes his decision. All he has left is 1 snack and 4 chocolate bars, and staying put is just slow suicide. Despite what he's seen, his conclusion is clear. He has to move. If possible, he needs to find reliable survivors in this building and work with them to get out. He tightens the straps on his bag, checking his makeshift weapon. Staying here will only bring him closer to death, so he lifts his gear and prepares. His first goal is the 6th floor to check if Kim Juman blocked the entrance like he said. He moves silently toward the stairwell, every step careful. He reaches for the handle, then pauses. Something's different. The lights are on. That means someone turned on the emergency generator. No way there's a survivor in this building. He rushes to the window, heart pounding. It's dark outside, but inside the hallway glows. The whole frozen city is dead, yet his building has power. That can only mean one thing. Just in case, he tells himself, he needs to find them before the lights go out. He slams his fist lightly against the cold glass, realizing someone must have turned on the emergency generator. There's a survivor in this building, and the thought alone gives him hope. The lights could go out at any moment, so he can't waste time. He heads down, determined. He needs to find them. The survivor is probably in the management office or the security room, and both are on the first floor. That's a relief. It's freezing in the stairwell, and the concrete bites through his sock. But it's better than attracting zombies' attention, so he takes his shoes off. He moves like a shadow, each step silent. He reaches the 6th floor, his breath held. Okay, just a quick check, he whispers to himself. He peeks through. It's blocked, just like Kim Joo-min promised. A small smile breaks through. There might be more survivors in the building than he thought. Now that he's checked, he should head down. It doesn't seem like the zombies outside have invaded yet, but considering the usual foot traffic in the lobby, there's a high chance they're lurking. He grips the lobby door handle, his hand shaking. Please, let there be none, he prays as he cracks it open. He opens it just a sliver, and the cold air hits him. There they are. It's a whole horde of zombies crowding the turnstiles, blood covering their office clothes. He slams the door shut and backs away. At least the zombies outside haven't gotten in yet. But if this keeps up, the door might break soon. Let's move quickly, he tells himself, turning away from the lobby. The only other place on this floor is the management office. He steps inside, uneasy. And there he is, the guy who greeted him every morning, now frozen solid on the floor. He's heard that people who die from hypothermia sometimes take off their clothes. He froze to death. He gently closes the man's eyes. Rest in peace, he murmurs, a rare moment of humanity in this hell. The only place left is the security room. Maybe there's a survivor there. Like how he set up barricades, they might have traps prepared for intruders. He needs to show he's not a zombie and not hostile, so he steadies his breathing and reaches for the hand. Behind him, the sounds from the lobby grow louder. A zombie groans as it slams against the glass. Their eyesight might be bad, but their hearing is sharp. He must be careful. He doesn't barge in. He taps lightly on the security room door. Phew! Now carefully open the door, he thinks, his heart hammering against his ribs. He turns the knob, pushes it open just an inch, and freezes. Someone is already on the other side. He lets out a slow breath, forcing his hands to stay steady as he tells himself to open the door carefully. His fingers brush the cold handle, and the moment it cracks open, his eyes go wide. Something slams toward him from the other side, and he jerks his golf club up on pure instinct. Wood meets wood in the narrow hallway, the impact rattling both their arms. He freezes mid-swing, because that sound from behind the door wasn't human at all. The other man hears it too, his glasses slipping as panic flashes across his face. A guttural roar tears down the corridor as an infected stumbles into view, blood still fresh on its mouth. They both scramble back, the stranger slamming his palm against the office door to get inside. Back to back in the dark office, they listen as the infected claws at the hallway outside. Jin Sang tightens his grip, his breathing sharp, ready to swing again if that door gives. The lock clicks shut, and for a second the only sound is their ragged breathing. Inside, neither lowers his weapon, keeping a careful distance across the desks. Jin Song breaks the silence first, asking if he's human. The man nods quickly, yes, and throws the same question back at him. They circle each other slowly, neither trusting the answer yet. Jin Seong lifts his company ID, introducing himself as Song Jin Seong, assistant manager from sales team 2. The other man pulls his blanket tighter and answers, Cho Jae-song, assistant manager from the development team. Jin Song studies him and thinks, he found a survivor, but what if he's infected like Kim Joo-min was? Cho notices the stare and mutters that covering yourself can hide wounds. Unlike Juman, Cho isn't sweating, but he looks freezing cold, his lips pale. Jin Zheng's eyes drop to the heavy backpack on the desk, wondering if he stopped by the lounge. Cho holds his broken mop handle like a lifeline, knuckles wet. Jin Song remembers the rule. Infected people show irrational hunger, and the fact Cho could stockpile like this means he's probably clean. He slowly extends an open hand, a silent offer to stand down. Cho hesitates, then slides the stick across the desk toward him. Jin-sung realizes he made him wary by staring at the bag, not at him. The silence turns awkward, and he scrambles for a way to break the ice in the middle of an apocalypse. At the old office, when things got tense, they just smoked together. He decides to try the same stupid human ritual now. His hand dips into his crossbody bag while Cho watches, confused. He pulls out a crushed red pack of Marlboros. He offers it forward, asking if he wants to smoke one. Cho stares at the cigarettes like they're from another world, his glasses fogging. His shoulders finally drop, the tension bleeding out of his grip. For a brief moment, the chapter pauses on the absurdity of two office workers about to share a smoke during the end of the world. Cho lets out a quiet still processing that he's not about to die. Jin-seong nudges the broken stick back toward him, a gesture of trust. Cho reaches down and picks up a lighter from the desk, his hand shaking. They finally sit, and Jin-song exhales, saying it seems like they'll live. A loud grumble cuts through the relief as Cho's stomach betrays him. Jin-song smirks and tells him to wait a moment. He glances at the backpack again, certain that amount of food must be from the lounge. Cho unzips it and snaps a block of dry ramen in half with a crack. Jin-song takes his half and warns him not to eat in a hurry, to chew it thoroughly. He crunches into it himself, the dry noodles loud in the dead quiet office. Chewing, he asks if Cho really looted the entire second floor. Cho nods. Correct, they didn't need the fridge anyway. Jin-song keeps eating, the small comfort hitting harder than he expected. He asks how bad the situation is down on the second floor. Cho's face darkens, he says not good, and starts to remember. At first he was trapped in the lounge with a colleague, and they split all the food in half. That friend couldn't wait for rescue, left and got infected immediately after walking out. Jin-song listens quietly, taking off his own glasses for a second. Cho adds he also had to leave because his phone battery was about to die. He had to throw his phone light to distract 4 zombies and crawl out on his stomach. Jin-song is genuinely impressed. Escaping 4 infected safely is no small feat. Cho laughs awkwardly, then asks if Jin-song was the one who turned on the emergency generator. Jin-song confirms yes, he needed it for charging. He gestures to the power strip on the floor, still glowing red. Cho is stunned, asking if he's been surviving without using the internet this whole time. Jin-song frowns. No signal, right? Cho shakes his head. Satellite internet still works. Jin-song had no idea. The world was still talking without him. Cho tells him the fast charger is almost done and offers to charge his phone for him. The minutes tick by on the wall clock as the phone slowly comes back to life. Jin-song finally scrolls, his thumb hovering over a survivor community. He reads the posts, people asking if anyone is still alive, when the snow will stop, one person writing they think this is it for them, that if they fall asleep they'll probably die. He thanks Cho quietly, the weight of all those strangers settling on him. They sit in the dim light, saying nothing, just breathing. Both look up at the same time as the ceiling lights flicker. Cho stands, adjusting his blanket, and says first he'll stay here. He hands the charged phone back, cleaning his glasses. Jin-song understands the subtext. Cho is saying he'd prefer if he left. Cho explains his strategy is to hold out as long as possible in the safest place. He doesn't need a companion who just wastes food by sitting around. Jin-song agrees silently. For someone who wants to keep moving, someone who just waits is a hindrance. It's right to part ways here, before they start resenting each other. Cho gives a small, tired smile and says he'll be leaving the office to him. He reaches into his bag and pulls out something small. It's a flashlight and a spare battery, his parting gift. Jin-song takes it, knowing in a situation without power, this is an incredible item. He offers the cigarette pack back in return. Cho accepts it, turning it over in his cold hand. Jin-song says he'll be leaving now and wishes him good luck. Cho nods back, telling him the same, and watches him head for the door. Jin-song walks fast down the hall, thinking he has to hurry before the generator runs out. He passes the main lobby and sees them, a horde of infected still banging against the glass door. Thankfully, the doors are still holding, but the glass shudders with every hit. He ducks into the stairwell, hearing a low gra echo from below. He twists the basement door handle, remembering his company car should be parked down there. The frozen parking lot stretches out, cars buried under a thin sheet of ice. He stops, a thought hitting him. Leaving now might be a rash decision. He decides to go up first, to gather information from the company, and then escape. He turns and starts climbing, his footsteps loud on the concrete stairs. Halfway up he pauses, his senses sharpening. He reaches into his bag and pulls out the flashlight Cho gave him. Right on cue, The emergency power dies and the stairwell goes pitch black. He clicks the flashlight on, the thin beam cutting the dark, and moves carefully, slowly. He counts the floors as he passes, 4th floor, 5th floor, 6th floor, his breath clouding in the freezing air. Near the top, he stops cold, his eyes narrowing, because there's something moving on the upper floor. He doesn't turn back, he just tightens both hands around his golf club and steps forward into the dark, knowing whatever is waiting up there isn't going to wait for him. A low growl echoes through the empty stairwell as a flashlight cuts through the darkness. Death waits somewhere ahead. A bloodied figure drags itself up the stairs. Every step is agony, every breath a scream. He finally sees it, the rooftop door. After everything, safety is just 1 floor away. But relief doesn't last. A sound behind him freezes his blood. He's not alone. The zombie's jaw snaps inches from his face. Its rotting mouth reeks of decay and hunger. Instinct takes over. His body reacts before his mind can process the horror lunging at him. Gripping the golf club, his knuckles turn white. Panic floods his veins, but he has no choice. He swings with everything he has. Fear turns into raw force. The impact is brutal. The club slams into the creature's skull with a sickening crack. The zombie's head whips back from the blow. Blood sprays across the cold concrete wall. It shrieks, the sound tearing through the stairwell like glass. The fight isn't over. He doesn't hesitate. He brings the club down again, desperation fueling every strike. The zombie collapses. Its body hits the ground with a heavy thud that echoes in the silence. For a moment, there is only the sound of his ragged breathing. He stares, waiting for it to move again. His heart pounds against his ribs. Is it really dead? He can't afford to be wrong. A system window flashes before his eyes. He earned something for surviving. 1 coin. The shop interface confirms his balance. 2 coins now, enough to buy necessities if he finds the shop. He doesn't understand it yet, but he pockets the knowledge. Maybe this currency decides who lives. But the victory is short-lived. Even in death, the zombie refuses to stay down. He curses, realization dawning. Smashing the head is the only way to end them for good. Gritting his teeth, he raises the club one final time. This time, he aims to finish. He smashes down with all his remaining strength. The impact is final. The skull gives way. The threat is truly gone now. He collapses to his knees, gasping. The adrenaline leaves him shaking and exhausted. But he's alive, barely, and that has to be enough for now. He pulls up the shop window again, staring at the glowing text. 2 coins. The rules of this new world are changing. His hands tremble as he processes what just happened. He killed something that used to be human. He grips the bloodied golf club tighter. This weapon kept him alive once. He won't let go of it now. A thought cuts through the dread. If coins drop from kills, he needs to collect every one. He moves quickly, searching the corpse. Survival means taking every advantage. He finds a bag near the body. Supplies could mean the difference between life and death. The rooftop door looms ahead. He reaches it, hope rising in his chest. The handle doesn't budge. It's locked. The one safe path is sealed shut. Despair hits him hard. If the rooftop is closed, nowhere on this floor is truly safe. He slumps against the wall, the weight of isolation crushing him. The door won't save him. Forcing himself up, he checks the room. It's empty. For now, he can breathe. He exhales, shoulders dropping, a moment of peace in the middle of hell. He takes a desperate drink. Water is scarce, and every sip matters. A flash of movement. The zombie he thought he killed is back, faster than before. It lunges like a wild animal. Whatever humanity it had is gone. Only speed and hunger remain. He stumbles back, analyzing the threat. It's stronger and quicker than any human he's faced. Outside the windows, the city is a frozen graveyard. Zombies wander through the snow-covered streets. He watches them from above. They're everywhere. He's trapped in a building surrounded by death. He pulls out his phone. If he can't trust his eyes, maybe the internet has answered. The survivor gallery loads. 182 posts today, all of them screaming into the void. He scrolls through the desperation. Temperature readings. Please for help. People are freezing to death. 27 degrees Celsius at 1 p.m., dropping below 30 degrees Celsius at night. In Gangwon province, tap water freezes instantly. Survivors are melting snow to drink. He puts the phone down, the weight of the truth settling in. The last posts are farewell. One post sticks with him, a guy whose sister got bitten while raiding a mart. He ran out of food. He thinks it through. Zombies are sensitive to sound. Their sight and smell are dulled. They only stop when their heads are destroyed. The question burns in his mind. If you're bitten, do you turn? Everyone already knows the answer. He lowers the phone. Most of the posts weren't information. They were cries for help. The city below is silent now. The government has collapsed. No rescue is coming. He stares into the frozen darkness, understanding the truth. The world ended, and no one told them. He pulls his coat tighter around himself. In this apocalypse, they have to save themselves. Night falls, the temperature plummets, his breath turns to mist in the freezing air. It's day 5 of survival, and the cold is trying to kill him faster than the zombies. He shivers violently. A cold here isn't just sickness, it's a death sentence. He forces himself to move. He needs to generate heat or he won't see morning. He unwraps the blanket from his waist. He needs to warm up, even if it means exposure. He starts doing jumping jacks, counting each one. Movement is life right now. His body protests, but he keeps going. He can't afford to stop. He stops gasping. The exercise helped, but his stomach is empty. He pulls out a chocolate bar. The small package feels heavier than it should. He bites down hard. Normally he'd ration this, but the cold changes the rules. He slips off his shoes. Every step needs to be silent if he wants to live. He sets them down carefully. Noise attracts them. He learned that lesson in blood. He creeps toward development room 1, golf club ready. He remembers the intel. His eyes narrow with focus. He's not just surviving anymore. He's hunting. He checks the hallway, heart racing. One wrong move and he's dead. He hears footsteps, heavy, approaching. He grips the club and holds his breath. He steels himself. The break room. That's where the food is. Assistant manager Choi Jae-sung said half the supplies should still be there. He maps it out in his head. 1 zombie in dev room 1, 1 in dev room 2, 1 in new business. The bag is in the break room. He has to take them out one by one. He crouches low, scanning the office layout. A red path forms in his mind. He needs tools first. He checks the supply room. No zombies. Good. The hunt begins now. After a brutal fight, he stands bloodied in the dark office hallway. Every breath hurts, but survival doesn't give him time to rest. Death nearly had him. A zombie's grip clamps onto his leg, teeth bared inches away from flesh. One mistake here means becoming one of them. The monster's roar fills the corridor. Blood, fury, and hunger pour out of its mouth as it lunges for the kill. Panic surges through his body. He clenches a flashlight between his teeth, hands trembling, knowing one wrong move ends everything. His flashlight slips from his grip and clatters to the floor. The darkness grows deeper, and so does the danger. Another one emerges from the shadows. Even after everything, the nightmare refuses to end. He screams through gritted teeth. Fear and rage collide as he forces his body to move, refusing to die in this frozen hell. His foot comes down hard. The zombie's skull gives way under the impact, silencing the threat with raw desperation. Blood-red eyes burn with survival instinct. He's not a fighter, but the apocalypse is turning him into one. With one final strike, he brings his weapon down. The last zombie collapses, and the office falls silent again. Chapter 6 begins. The office he once hated is now the only thing standing between him and death. He checks the blood on his boot. Each step leaves a trail. He curses under his breath, the weight of killing still fresh. Bloody handprints smear the wall. He remembers the chaos, the screams, and forces himself to focus on what comes next. 2 more were hiding in the office. He barely survived, and the thought of more lurking keeps his heart pounding. He grabs his flashlight off a corpse. It's covered in blood, but it's his only light in this frozen tomb. He forces himself to breathe. The fight is over, but his mind screams that 2 more are left. He can't afford to drop his guard. His voice shakes with urgency. The noise will draw more of them. He has to finish this now, before the horde comes. He grips the flashlight hard, jaw clenched. Time is running out, and every second spent here is borrowed. Zombies rush him from the darkness. He swings without thinking, driven by pure survival instinct. The impact connects. Another monster drops, but the fear doesn't. Not yet. He's face to face with death again. Blood splatters across his shirt as the zombie lunges, but he doesn't back down. With one brutal swing, he ends it. The hallway goes quiet, but his body screams that the danger isn't over. The fight ends with a heavy thud. His weapon is gone, bent, and useless after the slaughter. He looks down at his empty hands. Relief and dread hit him at once. He's alive, but now he's defenseless. Exhausted, he leans against the wall. His whole body shakes. He almost died. Again. He raises his weapon high, ready to strike. Even unarmed and terrified, he refuses to give up. He brings his knee down hard, crushing the last bit of resistance. Survival is ugly, but it's survival. Silence. The office is finally clear. For now. His bent weapon lies discarded. It saved his life, but it won't save him next time. He stands over the corpses, breathing hard. He made it through. but his voice cracks as he realizes how close death came. With the zombies dead, he turns to the body on the floor. There might be something useful here. He has to check. He pulls a backpack from the corpse. It's stained with blood, but supplies are supplies. In this world, guilt is a luxury. He slings the bag over his shoulder. The weight feels wrong, but he needs every advantage he can get. He pauses, listening. The office is quiet, but his instincts tell him to stay alert. Nothing is ever truly safe. He moves deeper into the building. He's already risked his life, so he might as well see if there's more to gain. He remembers what Assistant Manager Choi said. The break room was their hiding spot, which means the rest of the office went untouched. Development Team 1's desks are right ahead. If he's lucky, his old coworkers left something behind. He finds what he's looking for, a power bank and nutritional supplements. Small victories keep a man alive in the apocalypse. He stares at the loot in disbelief. In the old world, it was junk. Now it's treasure. Luck is finally on his side. He grabs a flashlight and keeps moving. Momentum is everything. Stop now and fear takes over. He heads toward Development Team 2. If Team 1 had supplies, maybe lightning strikes twice. He freezes. Another sound. His mind races. Was there another one hiding? Dread sinks in. He's got no weapon and his body is already at its limit. He bolts through the office. If he fights now, he dies. Running is the only option left. He slides to a stop, breathing hard. His feet leave bloody prints on the floor. Every step costs him. He drops the bag and collapses against it. His heart pounds like a drum. He needs a second to think. He hunches over the backpack, gasping for air. The adrenaline crash hits harder than the zombies did. He leans back, utterly drained. The silence of the office feels heavier than the screams did. He tells himself to stop feeling sorry. Self-pity gets people killed. He forces his mind back to survival. He lays out the hall. 5-cup ramens, a tin of cookies, choco pies, chips. It's not much, but it's hope. He laughs, and for the first time in days, it's real. This food means he gets to live another month. The laughter fades. He sits in the cold office, realizing how empty it feels without another human soul. His body starts to shiver. The excitement wore off, and the freezing air of the apocalypse sinks into his bones. He hugs himself to stay warm. The office that once had heating is now just another icebox. He heads to the sink. His feet are soaked in blood and water, and the cold is biting into him. He rolls up his pants and starts washing. The water is ice, but infection would kill him faster than the cold. Then he sees it, a wound on his foot. His stomach drops as the worst thought hits him. His eyes go wide with horror. The image of the zombie's teeth flashes in his mind. Did he get scratched? Panic takes over. His thoughts spiral. If he got infected, it's already too late. He forces himself to remember. No, he was never bitten. He's certain. He has to be. He checks his phone, still desperate for answers, but deep down he knows this isn't a zombie bite. Relief washes over him. It's not an infection, but the cold dread remains. He realizes the truth. This isn't a scratch. It's frostbite. The cold is trying to claim him next. He tears cloth to wrap his feet. The skin is pale, the damage serious. He has to warm up now. He sits there, rewrapping his foot, knowing that hunger and zombies aren't his only enemies. The cold is too. He opens the system shop. If he's going to survive the Ice Age, he needs gear, and coins are his only currency. The shop screen glows in front of him. Winter gear, the exact thing he needs to fight the cold. 4 options appear. Winter clothes, boots, gloves, hat. Each one costs 3 coins. The system is bleeding him dry. He stares at the prices in disbelief. Selling them separately feels like robbery, but he has no choice. He taps the screen, frustration boiling over. Survival has a price, and the system is the one setting. Light flashes. The boots materialize in front of him, real, tangible, and warm. He picks them up, stunned. They're perfect, heavy, insulated, and exactly his size. He slips one on. It fits like it was made for him. The system knows him better than he knows himself. He stands, testing the weight. For the first time since the freeze began, his feet aren't screaming from the cold. But it's not enough. He scrolls through the shop again. He needs more if he's going to last. He narrows his eyes. The system is taunting him. He has to choose carefully. Coins are light. He sees the price drop. 1 coin deducted. His heart races. He found something. The screen confirms it. Purchase complete. 1 more piece of gear secured. In this apocalypse, every item is a lifeline. For the first time since the apocalypse began, he finally feels warmth again as he presses a cheap hot pack against his frozen feet. It cost him an entire coin from the system shop, an absurd price for a single use, but he doesn't care. He rubs it in slowly, desperately, trying to force life back into his numb skin. The heat spreads, and in this frozen office building, that tiny warmth feels like salvation. He looks up with a tired, genuine smile and whispers to himself that he feels like he can actually live now. It's day 7 of survival, and he's completely alone, sitting by the window as snow blankets the dead city. Out of habit, he turns the faucet, but nothing happens. He twists it again, harder, and his face falls when he realizes the building's water has finally been cut off. He had prepared for this, pulling out the few bottles he managed to fill beforehand, barely 2 liters total. At best, that's 3 or 4 days, and he knows the countdown has just started. Just when he started to feel human again, the water dies and he collapses onto his makeshift bed, asking why this is happening to him. With nothing else to do, he grabs his phone, his only window to other survivors. He scrolls the anonymous survivor board and notices the posts uploaded today are down to just 22. One post catches his eye, a man on the first floor saying there are zombies downstairs, but he's going to try for the supermarket across the street. The man writes that his preparations are complete and he's heading out now. Another user asks if he's back, but the replies never come. He watches the chat go silent, the tension building with each unread message. The number of new posts is gradually decreasing, and he understands exactly what that means. He sits up in the dark, his expression grim, and concludes they're probably dead. He looks out at the city and realizes he can barely see any signs of survivors anymore. At this rate, he tells himself he might be the last one left in this building. But then he forces the thought away, convincing himself there have to be others hiding just like him. He checks the forum again and sees the same anonymous user spamming, "Hey, are you alive? Please answer. It's been a day." It's day 8 now, and he stands at the window, staring into the blizzard. He still has food and water left, but he knows he can't just sit here and wait to die. If he leaves alone, he'll die, so he needs an ally, no matter what. The problem is his only weapon is a flimsy golf club that will snap after taking down 3 or 4 zombies. He opens his shop window and sees a proper hammer for crushing skulls, but it costs 5 coins, the same as winter clothes. With a sigh, he closes it, realizing he's too broke to survive properly. He decides it's time to check the other floors, grabbing his club and flashlight and heading into the dark. The 4th floor is completely deserted, and he wonders why no one is here. Then his light lands on fresh bloodstains smeared across a desk, stains he's been seeing for a while now. His pulse quickens as he follows the trail. The air suddenly turns foul, and he instantly recognizes it. It's the smell of zombies. But where are the bodies, he thinks? If there was a fight here, where did they go? A chill runs down his spine as he whispers what on earth happened. He grips his club tighter and moves deeper into the office. He stops at a locked door, listening intently, wondering if someone is hiding inside. Hearing nothing, his suspicion only grows. He wedges his club into the frame and pries it open with all his strength. He shouts, "I'm coming in," and kicks the door. The lock shatters as the door bursts open. He spins around, ready to swing, but freezes mid-motion. The senior managing director's office is filled with a mountain of corpses. He steps inside, his boots sticking to the blood, and realizes there has to be at least 10 of them. He crouches down, completely stunned, asking himself who in the world could do this. This wasn't a desperate struggle, this was a slaughter. His hands start to shake as the reality sets in. He leans against a wall, calling it futile, realizing how weak he is compared to whoever did this. That's when his light catches a piece of paper taped near the water dispenser. He picks it up carefully, his breath visible in the cold air. He note reads, "Hello, if you are reading this, you've entered the 4th floor alive. I've taken all the food, so don't waste your effort." He continues reading, learning the writer specifically piled the zombie corpses in the director's office and warns not to open it. His eyes widen as he realizes he just walked right into the warning. He flips the page, his hands trembling slightly. The writer adds he left a shirt in a cabinet and, crucially, recommends avoiding the 5th floor if possible. At the bottom, the name makes his jaw drop, Assistant Manager Yoon Hyuk-jae from the accounting team. It's his colleague from the same year, the guy who never shut up about being in the special forces. Then he sees the PS, "I've left a gift in the drawer for any office worker who might come by," and his despair turns to hope. He tears open the drawer and 2 coffee mix sticks fall out. On day 10, he sits by the window wrapped in the gifted shirt, sipping the coffee, finally feeling human again. But his mind keeps returning to the warning, why avoid the 5th floor when that's just the president's office? Logically, there shouldn't be many zombies up there, but Hyuk-jae isn't the type to give a warning without a reason. He tosses the empty wrapper, his expression turning serious. More importantly, he hasn't seen a single survivor since yesterday. As time passes, he knows the chances of meeting an ally will only decrease. He crumples the note in frustration, regretting that he missed Hyuk-jae by just one day. Hyuk-jae left at 10 a.m. on day 5, and he arrived on day 6. He stands up, determined not to waste another chance, deciding he must search the other floors. But as he wonders how many floors he'd have to check, a sudden bright flash reflects in the window. He slams his hands against the glass, his eyes wide with shock, realizing someone out there is sending him a signal. He freezes mid-step, eyes narrowing at something across the frozen cityscape. A faint smile breaks through his exhaustion as hope flickers for the first time in days. Across the glass, a lone figure is waving frantically, shouting something he can't hear. The distance and the howling wind steal the words, leaving only desperate gestures. His companion leans closer to the window, trying to read the stranger's lips. It's too far, and the storm makes it impossible to tell what he's trying to say. He pauses, his mind racing, then decides to get closer to the glass. The stranger presses a piece of paper against the window, wondering if this will even work. Finally, the message comes into focus, and his breath catches. The note reads that there are survivors on the 6th and 7th floors and they want to team up. The realization hits him hard. They aren't alone in this apocalypse. He processes it quickly, pushing aside the shock. He decides the people across the way can wait. The 6th floor is closer. If there's definitely someone on the 6th floor, that's where he needs to start. He grips his weapon tighter and commits to moving. He tells himself it's time to go. Blood still stains his sleeve from the last fight, but he doesn't stop. He heads for the stairwell, the weight of survival pressing down on him. The 6th floor entrance is eerily open, not barricaded as he expected. He wonders if the survivor inside saw the message and cleared the path themselves. He announces himself, saying he's also an employee at Taeseong Trading. He steps inside slowly, flashlight cutting through the dark office. He keeps his golf club ready, every muscle tense. His boots crunch over scattered papers on the floor. He crouches down, noticing the doorframe is splintered. It wasn't just opened, it was kicked in with force. A cold feeling settles in his gut that something is wrong here. He thinks to himself that another guest must have arrived before him. Behind him, a shadow moves in the darkness, eyes glowing white. He doesn't hear it at first, the zombie already closing in. He spins just as the infected lunges, the stench hitting him instantly. He barely gets his club up in time to block. The creature snarls right in his face, blood dripping from its mouth. He grits his teeth, the impact rattling his arm. He shoves back with everything he has, creating distance. The zombie stumbles but doesn't fall, driven by pure hunger. He swings low and catches its leg, sending it crashing to the ground. He doesn't hesitate, driving the club down hard. He pins it, his breath ragged as he stares down at the thing that used to be human. With a final, brutal strike, he ends it, his chest heaving. He gasps for air, adrenaline still screaming through his veins. The zombie twitches one last time before going still. Blood sprays across the cold floor, a stark red on white tile. He stands over the body, trying to steady his shaking hand. The corpse lies motionless at his feet, another death on his conscience. He wipes sweat from his face, forcing himself to breathe slowly. He looks around the trashed office, realizing this wasn't a random attack. He lifts a fallen desk back into place, using it to crush and ensure the zombie won't get up. The heavy thud echoes, final and grim. He drops the makeshift weight, the fight finally over. He calls out again, saying he thought there was a survivor here. He walks deeper into the floor, flashlight sweeping each cubicle. Doubt creeps in as he mutters that the guy across the street might have lied. A faint clank from a door handle stops him cold. He whirls around, hope and suspicion colliding. A survivor? It looks like the message wasn't a lie after all. He turns his head sharply toward the sound coming from the break room. He approaches cautiously, hearing soft movement inside. He stops in front of the locked door, weapon ready. Inside, someone is gripping the handle from the other side, trembling. He steadies himself, preparing for whatever is about to come out. He raises his golf club, ready to break the door down if needed. He warns that if no one answers, he'll have to force his way in. He taps the club against the door, the sound sharp in the silence. The door finally creaks open a fraction. A young woman in a hoodie peeks out, eyes wide with fear and relief. She steps back, letting him see she's alone. They sit down at a small break room table, the tension still thick. On the table lies a sharpened wooden pole and some snacks. She begins to explain, her voice shaking as she says yes, and then last night, she recounts how someone came pounding on her door begging her to open. She tells him she had a bad feeling and refused to let the man in. But the man realized she was alone and forced his way inside anyway. She remembers the sound of the door splintering as he broke in. She fled into the break room and hid, heart pounding. She heard him transform less than an hour later, his groans turning inhuman. The realization hits her hard as she remembers the horror. She grabbed whatever she could find and fought back. She survived, but the trauma is still fresh in her eyes. He asks her if she happens to have a weapon. She points to the corner, where something familiar leans against the wall. He looks over and recognizes the design. It's similar to what Choi Jae-sung had. He picks it up, realizing it's just a mop handle. She confirms it, saying she sharpened it herself with a box cutter. She adds that it's surprisingly useful when you're desperate. He turns it over in his hands, noting the dried blood on the tip. He thinks to himself that she's clearly dealt with zombies before. But even so, a dark thought creeps in. She's still a huge risk. He tells himself women aren't as strong, and in this world that's a major disadvantage. He rationalizes that it's not just zombies hunting people anymore. Other survivors are just as dangerous. He decides in his head that she could easily become a liability. He looks at the sharpened tip, thinking he'd prefer something shorter and thinner, but it's better than nothing. He makes up his mind and tells her he should be going. She panics, her voice cracking as she asks if he's really leaving her. She pleads with him, saying she doesn't think she can survive alone. She stands up quickly, grabbing his sleeve to stop him. He pulls away slightly, conflicted. She desperately tries to prove her worth, saying she cleared all the zombies on the 6th floor. She offers to show him the bodies as proof. She insists he'll regret leaving her behind, that she's sure of. She reveals she even won a silver medal at the National Sports Festival back in high school. She tells him she's already searched the entire floor, so all the food and clothes are secured here. He listens, his expression unreadable. He asks about power banks, wondering if they're useless now. She looks confused, then he remembers the lines are down. He explains there's something called Space Link, satellite communication. Her eyes light up at the possibility of contacting the outside world. She immediately says they need to grab every power bank they can find. He asks how many zombies were on this floor in total. She answers 8 plus the one he just killed, making 9. She suddenly spots them and shouts that she found the power banks. He is stunned. 8 zombies killed by her alone? He feels a surge of relief, glad he decided to team up with her after all. They search through the drawers together. In the end, there are only 2 power banks left. He asks if they should get going. She nods, but something on the floor catches his eye. He kneels down, examining strange marks near the door. She explains that when the man broke in yesterday, it looked like he was trying to smash the door. He shakes his head, saying no, this looks different, more deliberate. He realizes she needed a weapon and made one herself. He comments that it's a little short, which is a shame. He says he has an idea. Outside the building, a massive red sculpture stands half buried in the snow. Dozens of zombies are climbing over it, drawn to something. A horde is gathering right below their building, unaware of the survivors above. Back inside, she tenses as she hears a noise from the hallway. He instinctively reaches for his bag, checking his gear. She suddenly grabs his wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. He looks at her, startled by the contact. She holds on, her face filled with desperation as she tries to say something. He tries to pull away, but she doesn't let go. She grips tighter, as if afraid he'll disappear if she releases him. Her eyes well up with tears, the fear of being abandoned overwhelming her. He looks down at their hands, his own resolve wavering. She finally lets go, her hand slapping lightly against the table. She stares at him, silently begging him to stay. He doesn't answer immediately, the weight of her plea hanging in the frozen air. She clenches her fist on the table, trying to hold herself together. The 2 survivors remain locked in tense silence, their fragile alliance hanging by a thread as the Ice Age apocalypse rages on outside. Her shoes tap against the frozen office floor as Sayana steps forward, finally ready to show what she's been working on. She holds it up with a proud ta-da, like she's presenting a gift instead of a weapon. It isn't pretty, but it's solid. A wooden pole reinforced with tape, a sharp metal caliper strapped to the end. She grips it tight, testing the weight, and the deputy manager finally sits up to watch. She asks if it's useful, and for a second her voice sounds like it did before the world ended. He doesn't hesitate. He tells her it's great. He takes it from her, feeling the weight settle in his palm, and she flinches slightly at his sudden closeness. He hands it back just as carefully, their fingers brushing in the cold. He explains what she's built. It can stab forward like a spear when they need distance. Then he flips it, showing the other end, and adds that the caliper can poke and hook like a tool made for survival. He thanks her quietly, and the gratitude lands heavier than the weapon itself. His grip tightens as he realizes this isn't just a stick, it's proof they can actually make things. He says it out loud. When you have more people, you don't just get more fighters, you get more ideas like this. They dump their bags onto the floor, combining what little food they have left, and it suddenly looks like enough for days. He picks up a frying pan from her bag, confused, and she looks away, embarrassed. She admits she brought it to return it because she hated the color, then forgot it in her locker. He almost laughs. That useless pan is now the only thing they have to melt snow for drinking water. She mutters that she can't believe her impulse buy might keep them alive. The mood shifts. He asks how she knew he was hiding in the break room that first day. She hesitates, then says she didn't figure it out herself. Someone told her, from the building across the street. He frowns. The building across the way? She nods. He must have missed it while he was scavenging. They were signaling with a flashlight, she says, writing on paper and holding it to the window. The message was simple. There are people here. Let's team up. He repeats the words slowly, weighing the risk in his head. She asks if they should answer, her voice small. He doesn't answer right away. Trusting strangers in an ice age is how you die. She admits she wanted to stick with him for the same reason. Finding someone trustworthy felt impossible. She doesn't want just anyone on their team. He respects that. He tells her then they won't contact the other building. Relief floods her face and she thanks him for actually listening to her opinion. He starts to turn away, but she stops him with one more thing she needs to say. She thinks Manager Choi is still alive. The name hits him like cold water. Manager Choi. She confirms it and says she believes he's on a different floor of this same building. On the first day, she was trapped on the 6th floor with him. He wasn't in the break room with her. He was locked in the bathroom when everything froze. He begged her for help through the door. Her voice cracks as she confesses what she did. She ignored him. She says it again, quieter this time, like the words are freezing in her throat. She was too scared back then to open the door for anyone. It wasn't until much later that she realized he had gotten out on his own. He asks when she last saw any sign of him. She thinks it was the night of the 2nd day. Since then, she's searched the 4th, the 2nd, and the 1st floors herself. That leaves only 2 places he could be hiding, assuming he never left the building. The 3rd floor or the 5th. The realization settles between them like frost. If the people across the street don't get an answer from them, they'll probably try signaling Choi next. He puts the pieces together instantly, a larger group, led by a manager who already abandoned someone once. She asks the question neither of them wants to answer. Will they come after them once they have numbers? He stares at the frozen window, his breath fogging the glass. He decides to shut the thought down. Worrying about things they can't control will kill them faster than the cold. He changes the subject to something they can control. They earned another coin. That means the shop window is open again. The system flickers to life in front of him, showing 3 categories: weapons, cold weather gear, food. He shivers violently under his thin office shirt, the cold biting through to his bone. He opens the cold weather gear tab. 2 items glow back at him, a warm trapper hat and a pair of insulated boots. Both cost 3 coins. He looks down at his own feet, already numb in his dress shoes, then at Siona's thin heel. A hat would keep his head warm, keep him thinking clearly. But if her feet get frostbite, she won't be able to walk. She'll become a burden he can't carry. Logically, the boots are the right choice for the team. He stares at the screen, his finger hovering, and feels a wave of shame crash over him. All he can think about is how cold he is, how much he wants that hat for himself. He calls himself selfish in his head. She is asleep on the desk nearby, wrapped in a thin blanket, shivering. He tells himself they're not moving yet, so it's not urgent. He'll choose later, he decides, and closes the window. He pulls the office blanket tighter around his shoulders and tries to sleep sitting up. The cold doesn't let him. He curls onto the desk, teeth chattering. She lies on the floor nearby, curled into a ball under a cat-patterned throw, also unable to get warm. Hours pass in silence, broken only by their breathing. Morning light finally filters through the ice on the windows, pale and weak. She wakes first, her voice hoarse from the cold. She asks if he charged all the batteries they found yesterday. He nods, then remembers the one he left behind in the storage closet. She sits up and mentions something he hadn't considered. There's a solar generator on their rooftop, she says. He looks at her, surprised. He didn't know the building had one. She explains she was in charge of it briefly for a small business support project. It was a test model, installed but never officially sold because of a minor flaw. It wasn't a safety issue, just an efficiency problem. He asks the only important question, does she know how to operate it? She says yes, because she was the one who wrote the manual. He stands immediately. Let's go check it out. They head for the stairwell, pushing through doors blocked by snowdrift. The cold hits them like a wall as they climb higher. They reach the rooftop access door, and he tries the handle. It's frozen shut. He braces his shoulder and shoves, the metal groaning. Seona pushes with him, her breath coming in short gasps. With a loud crack, the ice breaks and the door swings open. Snow pours in, blinding them for a moment. He shields his eyes and mutters that it was obvious, but he never even thought to check the roof. Outside, the world is white and silent. He looks up, searching for the generator and the ladder to reach it. The emergency ladder is folded up, frozen in place. It won't come down no matter how hard he pulls. He looks at the height and curses under his breath. She steps forward and says she'll climb up, asking him to just boost her. He hesitates, but she reminds him she was on the track team in college. Her movements are light and sure as he lifts her onto the lower ledge. She scrambles up, disappearing onto the roof platform. A moment later, her voice calls down. It's not very big, she can take it apart. He positions himself below, arms outstretched. The first solar panel comes down, and he catches it, the metal burning cold through his gloves. The second one follows, heavier than it looked. She climbs back down, exhausted but smiling faintly. They haul the parts back inside, their fingers numb. She gets to work, connecting wires with practiced hands while he watches. She says the installation is complete, though it's a shame they have to keep it inside. The snow outside is too bright and would reflect, but they'd freeze trying to mount it properly. He asks if it will even work through the window. She remembers the specs. On a bright sunny day, half a day of charging would get a phone to about 50%. He looks at the weak winter sun barely visible through the clouds. She tells him to just wait for now. They plug in the first battery and watch the numbers crawl. The next day, they check the reading. Connected. Remaining estimated charging time, 2 days, 6 hours, 7 minutes, 15 seconds. Only 8% in a full day. The disappointment is crushing. At this rate, they'll freeze before they ever get power. He sits on the cold floor, wrapped in his blanket, staring at the slow numbers. She doesn't say anything, just pulls her blanket tighter. The silence stretches as they both realize how bad their situation really is. That night, he finally gives in and puts on the boots from the shop, his feet instantly warming. The guilt doesn't leave, but survival is louder. She wakes in the morning and finds him asleep at the desk, still shivering despite the boot. She checks her phone, which has been charging all night. The screen lights up, 22%. Her eyes widen. It's working, just painfully slowly. He jerks awake at the sound, alarmed. She turns the phone toward him, her expression changing from relief to shock. Before he can ask what she sees, she stands up, her face pale, because the message on the screen isn't from the charger, it's from the building across the street, and they've stopped asking. He glances at the phone, and his jaw tightens. The battery is down to just 8%. Seon-ah watches him from across the freezing office, exhaustion written all over her face. After all the trouble they went through yesterday, this tiny number feels like a punch to the gut. He slides down against the wall, phone in hand, while Seon-ah quietly slips off her shoes, her bare feet hitting the ice-cold floor. He admits it out loud. He expected this, but the disappointment is still crushing. The sun still isn't out, and the world outside the window is nothing but white death. But he forces himself to sit up, because for the first time there is a new hope. He turns to her and says he finally knows where they need to go after they leave this office. She tilts her head, confused, and he answers, the company's warehouse. That place wouldn't just have food ingredients, it would have the actual tools they need to survive this apocalypse. Sona immediately agrees, her eyes lighting up at the idea. The problem is getting there alive. The car GPS is dead, and their phone will die long before they find the route. He suggests drawing a map on paper, anything to navigate the frozen city. Seon-ah shakes her head and tells him not to worry about that. The warehouse is right near her house. She used to pass it every day when she was out for a walk. That simple fact hits him like a wave of relief. He looks at her and feels genuinely glad he met her in this hell. Being alone felt hopeless, but now that he has a goal and a partner, he feels stronger. His gaze drops again to her feet, still bare on the concrete. Even now, with her toes freezing, she has never once tried to take his boots. He finally asks, trying to sound casual, what her shoe size is. She blinks, completely caught off guard by the sudden question. He covers quickly, saying he just remembered seeing some boots in the back. If they fit, he thought he'd bring them to her. In his head, he replays her lie from the roof the other day when she said she wasn't cold. Her entire face lights up. She tells him excitedly that she's a size 230. She clasps her hands together, pure joy breaking through the despair for a second. He can't help but smile back, flustered by her reaction. She offers to come with him, but he tells her to wait there. He'll go himself, it'll be faster. He turns and sprints down the hallway toward the storage room. She calls out behind him in confusion. He skidders to a stop and pulls out a pair of white, fur-lined winter boots from a box. He kneels and hands them to her. She slips them on and they fit perfectly. She starts to thank him, her voice breaking with relief, and a sharp electronic chime rings only in his ears. A translucent blue window pops up in front of him. A party has been formed. He freezes mid-motion, his hands still outstretched. Seon-ah is still bowing deeply in thanks, completely unaware anything happened. The system scrolls again. Current members. Coins acquired by party members are automatically yours. His mind reels. A party system? He stares at the floating text, his heart hammering against his rib. Was the shop window not everything this mysterious system could do? If that's the case, then gaining more party members would be a massive advantage for survival. But why is it appearing only now? The answer hits him instantly. It must be because he gave her an item he bought from the shop as a gift. Seon-ah looks up at him, smiling brightly, and thanks the deputy manager again. He snaps out of it and tries to hide his shock. She notices his strange expression and gets worried. She calls him deputy manager, asking if he's okay. She reaches out toward his face, trying to touch the invisible window she can't see. He flinches back instinctively. She calls his name again, louder this time, her concern growing. He realizes she thinks he's about to collapse. He forces a weak excuse saying he just got a little dizzy. He blames it on not eating properly lately. The blue window hovers in front of him, but Seon-ah's eyes pass right through it. He tests it, waving his hand directly through the interface in front of her face. She doesn't react at all. That confirms his suspicion. Even after forming a party, he is the only one who can see the system. For now, he decides, he'll keep this secret and just watch what happens. She looks at him with genuine worry and suggests they should eat something. He nods, grateful for the cover, and they walk off together. Survival Day 14. It's been 3 full days since their water ran out. His throat is raw, his lips are cracked and bleeding. Seon-ah whispers that she is so thirsty she can't stand it anymore. He agrees. They have no choice. They need to melt snow. He tells her he'll go get paper and old documents to use as fuel. They decide to build the fire on the rooftop so they don't burn the entire office down. He starts clearing a spot, dragging a metal storage box outside. But as he works, a cold dread settles in his stomach. If they light a fire outside, the smoke will rise high above the building. And out there are the plunderers. Groups of survivors who roam in packs committing assault, robbery, and murder for resources. He specifically didn't want to attract the attention of the people in the building next door. But he looks at Seon-ah's pale, dehydrated face and knows he can't wait any longer. He pulls out a cheap lighter with trembling fingers. The flame catches the edge of the paper with a soft hiss. He shields it from the wind, his own eyes reflecting the tiny fire. The small flame grows, crackling loudly in the silent, frozen city. Seon-ah kneels beside him, her hands shaking violently as she reaches for the heat. She breathes out, she can't believe what she's feeling. The warmth hits his frozen fingers and he exhales for what feels like the first time in weeks. She whispers that this warmth makes her feel like she can finally live again. He places a shallow metal pan filled with clean snow directly over the flames. The snow hisses and melts, slowly turning into water, then beginning to boil. Thick steam rises into the freezing night air, a beacon in the dark. He lifts a small metal cup to his mouth. The hot water scalds his throat in the most beautiful way possible. Seon-ah drinks too, her eyes closing in pure relief. She murmurs that it's so warm. He stares into his cup, stunned by the simple sensation. He thinks about how long it has been since he last tasted anything warm. Seon-ah looks up at the dark sky, her voice quiet. She says she thinks she had forgotten that this kind of warmth even existed in the world anymore. He agrees softly, he had forgotten too. They sit together in silence, just sharing the fire. He tells her they have to make it to the end, together. Morning of Survival Day 15. He is still half asleep, wrapped in a coat, when Seon-ah frantically shakes him awake. She is calling for the deputy manager, her voice panicked. He jolts upright, instantly on edge. He asks her what's wrong. She points a trembling finger toward the window of the next building. He asks what the note says. She explains someone from across the street left them a message on a notepad. It says they're coming this way. To be exact, the note reads, "We will go over there and join you." He demands to know when she saw it. She tells him she just found it and woke him up the second she read it. His blood runs cold. They must have seen her confirm the note because now they're moving. They'll be outside their building in minutes. He curses under his breath, wondering if they saw the smoke from their fire last night. He worries they think his small group has a massive stockpile of food and water. He has no way of knowing if these people are friendly survivors or plunderers. Seon-ah reminds him they already decided not to join with strangers. It's too dangerous. He agrees, but it's too late for that decision now. He orders her to pack everything, right now. He rushes to the window and looks down at the street below. A group is moving through the snow, and they aren't shambling. They are fighting the zombies with terrifying efficiency, working as a coordinated unit. They are clearing a path straight toward his office building. He does the math in his head. At this speed, they'll be here in 10 minutes at the earliest. 15 minutes at the absolute latest. He turns back, his own bag already slung over his shoulder. He tells her he's ready and asks if she is packed. She nods, her face white with terror. Then a loud crash echoes up from the lobby downstairs. He grabs her hand hard and shouts for them to just run.
The barrier finally gave way as the intruders violently smashed through the barricade. Song pressed his hand against the freezing glass, his mind racing for an escape route. Sienna rushed up behind him, her heavy backpack weighing her down as she confessed she had grabbed all their supplies. But the sheer bulk of the bags made it impossible for her to move fast enough. Knowing they couldn't outrun the killers like this, Song bluntly ordered her to drop the bags and prioritize survival. Sienna hesitated, her heart sinking at the thought of leaving their hard-earned food behind. But with heavily armed murderers practically breathing down their necks, she had no choice but to listen. They darted into the freezing stairwell. Their breath, Song quickly weighed their options, glancing up towards the rooftop. It would be easier to defend, but the plummeting temperatures up there would eventually kill them both. Deciding against freezing to death, they rushed down instead. They slipped onto the 6th floor, preparing to barricade the heavy doors behind them. Heavy boots thudded against the concrete stairs above, growing louder with every passing second. Song and Sian all gripped their makeshift spears, their muscles tense and ready for a brutal fight. The murderous thugs were getting dangerously close, closing the distance with terrifying speed. Sweat dripped down Song's hands as he braced for the imminent breach. He knew that the moment that door opened, it would be a bloody fight to the death. But instead of a chaotic assault, an eerie, unsettling silence fell over the hallway. The attackers seemed to be meticulously sweeping the upper floors first. Every muffled footstep from above echoed like a ticking time bomb. The agonizing weight pulled their nerves completely taut. Song whispered to Sian, warning her that the thugs would breach their floor at any moment. They hid in the pitch-black shadows of the abandoned office, staying completely still. Their hearts hammered in their chests as they tracked the movements above. Suddenly, Sian frowned, a cold sense of dread washing over her as she realized the footsteps had completely stopped. Before they could process the silence, a deafening explosion violently ripped through the building. A massive shockwave rattled their teeth, sending dust and debris raining down from the ceiling. Song immediately ducked down, shielding himself from the aggressive tremor. They locked eyes in pure shock, completely bewildered by the sudden, terrifying blast. The attackers knew it was just the two of them, so why would they waste precious explosives? Unless, of course, the deadly trap wasn't set by the intruders at all. Sian trembled as the horrifying realization finally set in. Song's eyes widened as the broken pieces of the puzzle clicked together. Refusing to stay blind to the situation, they slowly crept out of the office to investigate. They pushed the heavy door open, greeted by a thick, suffocating cloud of black smoke. The entire hallway was obscured, reeking heavily of burnt flesh and gunpowder. With their weapons drawn, they moved through the haze, their flashlights piercing the dark destruction. Song signaled Sian to stay sharp, fully expecting a bloody ambush from the shadows. But as the smoke began to clear, her foot brushed against something uncomfortably soft. They lowered their beams, their breath hitching at the grisly sight before them. Song froze in his tracks, unable to comprehend the absolute slaughter. The heavily armed thugs who had been hunting them just moments ago were now scattered across the floor in pieces. He cautiously stepped forward to inspect the grim carnage. His boots splashed directly into a thick, expanding pool of warm blood. Shining his light forward, he saw that the reinforced steel door to the stairwell had been completely blown away. Whoever set off the blast had fully intended to obliterate everything in the corridor. Suddenly, a raspy, agonizing voice echoed from the darkest corner of the ruined hallway. Chief Choi lay slumped against the broken wall, covered in soot and bleeding out. The horrific reality of his sacrifice was laid bare. The explosion had completely mangled the lower half of his body. Despite the sheer agony, Choi weakly lifted his head, his eyes locking onto his former subordinates. A twisted, desperate smile stretched across his grimy face as he called out Song's name. He weakly extended a trembling, blood-soaked hand toward them. Song just stared down at the ruined man, a heavy mixture of horror and cold pity washing over him. Refusing to die, Choi began dragging his shattered body across the bloody floor. Tears streamed down his face as he desperately begged them for salvation. He sobbed pathetically, pleading with them to save his life just this once. But Song and Sean just stood there in silence, knowing full well they had no medical supplies to offer. Ignorant to their reality, Choi continued to cry, screaming that it wasn't fair for him to die in this frozen hellhole. He crawled closer, his bloody fingers scraping against the tiles in a desperate bid for survival. Sean took a slow step backward, thoroughly repulsed by the sight of the miserable man. Realizing they weren't going to save him, Choi's pathetic demeanor instantly shifted into venomous rage. He cursed them out, accusing them of leaving him to die just so they could shack up together. But before he could trigger his final hidden explosive and take them down with him, a sickening squelch echoed through the room. A blood-soaked spear pierced through the air, putting a definitive, brutal end to the Twisted Chief's miserable life. Holding the heavy hammer, he confirms their suspicions. The dead attackers were nothing more than desperate raiders. With their bag completely empty and the explosion rendering their shield useless, their hard-earned victory feels hollow. Turning away from the loot, he tries to shake off the lingering tension. Bending down near the lifeless body of the manager, the reality of what just happened sets in. Guilt washes over her face, the immense weight of a human life pressing down on her conscience. But he quickly steps in to anchor her, reminding her that the man would have slowly died from severe blood loss regardless. Still, the heavy silence of the room makes it hard for her to easily accept the brutal nature of their survival. Staring her dead in the eyes, he firmly tells her not to carry that burden. Dying early only spared him an agonizing end. Before the grim reality can fully settle, a sudden movement outside catches her attention. Pointing toward the shattered window, her voice trembles as she urges him to look outside. Stepping up to the glass, their eyes widen at the chaotic scene unfolding below. Peering closely through the freezing wind, he assesses the terrifyingly massive numbers. The deafening explosion from yesterday had acted like a dinner bell, drawing an endless sea of the infected directly to their building. Checking the survival community forum, his worst fears are confirmed. Everyone in the surrounding area heard the blast. With the internet buzzing about the fire at Taesung Trading, it's only a matter of time before more dangerous scavengers come flocking to their location. Rubbing his temples, the stress mounts as he realizes their safe house has turned into a ticking time bomb. Regrouping back at their makeshift camp, they know they can't afford to hesitate and let the roaming horde block their only escape routes. Calculating their dwindling options, he decides they need to abandon the building tomorrow at the earliest. She nods in agreement, gripping her weapon as she mentally prepares for the inevitable plunge into the freezing hellscape outside. Clicking on his headlamp, he suggests they scout the first floor to finalize their deadly escape plan. Anxiety gnaws at her as they prepare to descend into the unknown depths of the building. As they move, a chilling thought crosses his mind. Could the manager have somehow survived the chaos? He immediately shakes his head, dismissing the impossible idea since the man's skull had been cleanly pierced. Covering her mouth in absolute horror, she imagines the nightmare of another infected raider wandering the lower floors. They carefully navigate the pitch-black stairwell, every creak echoing like a gunshot in the silence. She grips her clothing tightly, her heart pounding against her ribs with every hesitant step downward. He rationalizes that even if someone had been bitten down here, the infection would have fully claimed them by now. Peeking cautiously through the metal railing, they hold their breath. Approaching the glass doors of the lobby, They brace themselves for whatever lies beyond the threshold. The sight steals the air from their lungs. The first floor is a complete and utter nightmare. It is completely overrun, leaving absolutely zero room to step through the mass of bodies. Dozens of the infected press their rotting faces against the glass, violently clawing at the fragile barrier. She stares in absolute disbelief, the sheer hopelessness of their situation finally settling in. As a zombie violently bashes against the security room door, their thoughts immediately shift to the man trapped inside. If the assistant manager is still alive in there, he would have felt the terrifying tremors of the explosion closer than anyone. Escaping through the main lobby would be nothing short of a suicide mission. Thinking on his feet, he pivots their strategy, suggesting they check the underground parking lot instead. Retreating from the infested lobby, they descend even deeper into the freezing shadows. Emerging into the dimly lit basement floors, they spot only a handful of stragglers wandering aimlessly. Compared to the absolute swarm upstairs, the numbers down here are actually manageable. He points out that the sudden, brutal blizzard forced everyone to abandon their vehicles in a panic. Realizing the tactical advantage, she notes that the scattered cars will provide perfect cover for them to slip by unseen. Using a convex mirror mounted on the wall, they carefully scout the blind corners ahead without exposing themselves. A wave of relief washes over him. Because they are underground, there is no wind to carry their scent to the rotting monsters. Retreating back to safety, they sit down in the freezing dark to map out the dangerous route they must take. Staring at the plans, he admits that finding a working vehicle would completely change their odds of survival. Testing the theory, they sit inside an abandoned car, desperately praying for the engine to turn over. But the brutal ice age reality sets in. The extreme, unrelenting cold has completely killed the battery. Later that night, wrapped in heavy blankets, the anxiety of tomorrow's escape weighs heavily on both of them. Noticing her constantly tossing and turning, he quietly asks if something is bothering her. Unable to hide her guilt, she admits her heart is aching for the sole survivor trapped down on the first floor. Staring into the dark, he understands the heavy moral burden she is carrying on her shoulders. Outside, the unforgiving blizzard continues to rage, a cruel reminder of how easily a life can be snuffed out. Breaking the silence, he gently tells her that if she truly wants to save him, they can bring him along. Her eyes widen with immense gratitude, even as she worries that this act of kindness might end up getting them both killed. Lying back down, they both silently accept the massive risk they are about to take. He reassures her that once they step outside, they will face far deadlier threats anyway. One more person won't change the apocalypse. Reaching for his phone in the freezing darkness, he decides to make the crucial move. She watches him with a warm smile, deeply moved by his willingness to compromise their hard-earned safety for a complete stranger. Day 17 of survival begins. Packed and heavily armed, they prepare to leave their sanctuary behind. He checks his screen one last time, hoping for a reply, but the community forum remains completely silent. Gripping their weapons tightly, they begin their final, tense descent down the stairwell. Arriving at the designated emergency exit, they stand in the freezing silence, waiting for a miracle. But as the clock slowly ticks past their meeting time, the empty hallway offers no salvation. Peering through the frosted glass, they cautiously scan the perimeter for any signs of movement. A lone infected wanders aimlessly through the misty, freezing shadows of the parking garage. Lowering his voice to a bare whisper, he quickly relays the survival strategy to his companion. Just as the online survival communities had warned, the undead seem trapped in a repetitive loop, circling the same territories. With bated breath, they carefully slip out of their hiding spot, weapons gripped tight. Every step is calculated as they hug the sides of abandoned cars, trying to remain completely invisible. Suddenly, the girl freezes in her tracks, her heart skipping a beat. He immediately looks back, sensing her sudden spike of panic. A grotesque figure stands completely still in the gloom, mere inches from their path. A slight shift in weight creates a sharp crunching sound, shattering the dead silence. The creature's head violently snaps toward the noise, its dead eyes locking onto them. It unleashes a blood-curdling screech, alerting anything else nearby. With feral, explosive aggression, the monster lunges straight for him. Its decaying face contorts in pure hunger, desperate to sink its teeth into fresh prey. But he doesn't flinch, his eyes narrowing as he reads the creature's blind charge. In one brutal, fluid motion, He drives the blunt end of his weapon directly into the monster's skull. Not missing a single beat, the girl steps in from the side to finish the job. She brings her makeshift spear down with bone-crushing force, ensuring the monster never gets back up. Catching his breath, he gives her a quick nod of approval for her swift and lethal reaction. A faint, relieved smile crosses her face before they quickly refocus on their desperate mission. Clearing the immediate threat, they push forward toward the building's main exit. Pushing the heavy doors open, they finally step out into the apocalyptic winter wasteland. The biting, sub-zero wind instantly pierces through their clothes, far worse than they had ever imagined. Trudging through the thick snow, the harsh reality sets in. Sleeping outside tonight would mean freezing to death. The extreme drop in temperature has turned some of the wandering infected into sluggish, frost-covered statues. Battling the fierce, howling blizzard, they force themselves to keep moving toward their destination. The completely frozen Chongyajian stream stretches out before them, a chilling reminder of the ruined city. But their path is heavily blocked by a massive, terrifying swarm gathering near the local police station. Keeping a safe distance, they analyze the horde's movements, searching for any possible opening. Just as they prepare to sneak around the threat, a harsh gust of wind violently sweeps through the street. His eyes widen in absolute horror as the realization hits him. The sudden shift in the wind's direction spells absolute disaster for their stealth plan. He frantically turns to her, knowing they have only split seconds to react. A harsh breeze carries their living scent directly toward the starving horde. Hollow eyes snap open, the scent of fresh blood violently waking them from their frozen slumber. Dozens of infected break into a dead sprint, roaring as they charge through the snow. Pure panic sets in as they realize their stealth approach has completely collapsed. They look down toward the sunken stream, desperately seeking an escape route. But taking the stairs down would be a fatal mistake. The brainless monsters wouldn't bother walking down. They would just tumble down the steps in a violent avalanche, trapping them in a pit of death. They wildly scan the icy streets for a secure building to take shelter in. The open storefronts are already crawling with the undead, waiting in the shadows. And breaking into a locked store would create a shattering noise, drawing the entire horde right to them. Surrounded by the freezing cold and bloodthirsty monsters, survival seems entirely impossible. Suddenly, he spots a massive shadow looming through the driving snow. An abandoned city bus sits lifeless on the left side of the frozen road. With the roaring pack right on their heels, they sprint toward the vehicle with everything they have. He violently jams the end of his weapon straight into the tight crack of the bus doors. Straining every muscle in his body, he desperately tries to pry the heavy metal doors apart. The metal groans in resistance before a small gap finally opens up. He shoves himself through the narrow opening. Just in the nick of time, the girl squeezes in right behind him as the horde closes the distance. They grab the inner handles, violently yanking the doors shut against the freezing wind. The infected slam heavily against the glass outside, their bloody hands smearing against the windows. He throws himself into the driver's seat, frantically searching the darkened dashboard. He mashes the door control lock, praying the vehicle's battery isn't completely dead. Nothing happens, leaving the mechanical lock completely unresponsive. Realizing the automated system is dead, they know they have to hold the doors closed with sheer physical strength. Suddenly, a loud hiss of depressurizing air echoes through the cabin. Without warning, the heavy hydraulic doors start sliding open on their own. She screams out in panic as the heavy glass slips right through her grip. He abandons the dashboard, rushing back to throw his entire body weight against the sliding doors. But the sheer number of monsters pressing from the outside is rapidly overwhelming their combined strength. A monstrous, blood-soaked arm violently shoves its way through the widening gap. The infected start pouring into the bus, their snapping jaws inches away from tearing them apart. Trapped inside the narrow metal coffin, with a ravenous horde breaking through, his eyes lock onto the inescapable nightmare unfolding before them. The entire bus violently shudders as the engine roars against the apocalyptic blizzard. His eyes widen in sheer panic as he realizes the massive weight of their situation. The sudden jolt of the heavy vehicle throws her entirely off balance, sending her crashing to the floor. He desperately reaches out, trying to stabilize her while keeping his focus on the dangerous path ahead. Gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles, he knows one wrong move means certain death. Outside, the heavy green bus plows relentlessly through the thick, unforgiving snow. Every muscle in his arm strains as he fights to keep the massive vehicle under control. The shattered city streets are a maze of abandoned cars and debris, forcing him to navigate blindly. He slams his foot down on the pedal, desperate to build enough momentum to break through the snowdrifts. The bus surges forward, kicking up a massive cloud of powder in its wake. But a sudden, chilling realization washes over him as the steering wheel goes completely limp in his hands. Sparks violently erupt as the bus scrapes against abandoned vehicles hidden beneath the snow. He grits his teeth in frustration, realizing the road is completely encased in solid black ice. She clings to the seats for dear life, her heart pounding against her ribs as the vehicle swerves, out of control. The biting cold outside seems to seep straight through the metal frame of the bus. Losing all traction, the massive transport begins to drift dangerously across the frozen intersection. The world outside spins in a blur of white as they brace for a catastrophic impact. A terrified scream escapes her lips as she watches the impending collision through the windshield. He wrestles with the wheel, throwing his entire body weight into a desperate attempt to correct their course. But as the bus finally screeches to a halt, a new, much deadlier nightmare immediately presents itself at their window. A massive horde of the undead, drawn by the chaotic noise, immediately swarms the stalled vehicle. The two survivors stare in absolute horror as the rotting monsters begin slamming their bodies against the fragile glass. Dozens of infected crowd around the bus, their ravenous groans drowning out the howling wind. Blood-smeared hands violently smack against the windows, desperate to tear their way inside. Knowing the glass won't hold forever, he tightens his grip on his weapon, preparing for a brutal final stand. But suddenly, a loud, metallic crash echoes through the frozen street as a heavy object slams into a nearby car. The sharp, ringing noise instantly catches the attention of the mindless horde. Like a pack of rabid dogs, the zombies immediately abandon the bus, sprinting blindly toward the source of the sound. Her legs completely give out from the sheer adrenaline drop, and she collapses onto the cold floor in utter disbelief. He drops to one knee beside her, letting out a heavy sigh of relief as they realize they just narrowly escaped death. Taking a moment to catch their breath, they can hardly process the sheer luck that just saved their lives. The bus now sits silently in the frozen wasteland, finally free from the surrounding horde. He slowly rises to his feet, peering through the frosted window into the desolate cityscape. He questions out loud what could have possibly caused that perfectly timed distraction. They both press against the glass, scanning the towering buildings above them for any signs of life. Suddenly, her eyes widen, and she excitedly points toward the upper floors of a nearby complex. High above the danger, a lone figure stands in an open window, looking down at them. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she immediately begins waving enthusiastically at their mysterious savior. He watches her energetic reaction, still trying to process that someone out there actually chose to help them. Reaching into his bag, he pulls out a pair of binoculars to get a better look at the person who just saved their lives. Raising the lenses to his eyes, he focuses in on the distant window to identify the stranger. But as the adrenaline finally wears off, the true danger of the Ice Age apocalypse begins to set in. She wraps her arms tightly around herself, her entire body shaking uncontrollably as the temperature plummets. He turns to her, his expression darkening as he notices her lips turning a dangerous shade of blue. A violent sneeze escapes her, proving that the freezing air inside the bus is quickly becoming lethal. Without a second thought, he steps closer, realizing they need to find a way to warm up immediately. Outside, the blizzard continues to rage, dropping the city's temperature to uninhabitable levels. The thin windows of the transport vehicle offer absolutely zero insulation against the biting winter winds. He quickly wraps a thick, insulated blanket tightly around her shoulders, trying to trap whatever body heat she has left. She huddles deep into the fabric, shooting him a thankful look, but they both know a blanket won't be enough to survive the night. He sits across from her, pulling his own coat tight as the freezing air begins to gnaw at his own bones. Rubbing her hands desperately together, she tries to force some feeling back into her numb fingers. Knowing they will freeze to death if they don't start a fire, he stands up with a sudden burst of determination. But lighting a fire inside a closed bus would suffocate them with smoke in minutes. He looks up at the ceiling, analyzing the structural layout of the vehicle for a solution. He points toward the emergency escape hatch on the roof, realizing it could act as a perfect makeshift chimney. With a powerful push, the heavy plastic hatch unlatches, exposing them to the falling snow. She grabs a long tool, using it to prop the vent open just enough to let air escape without letting the blizzard in. He nods in approval, thoroughly impressed by her quick thinking and resourcefulness. With the ventilation secured, a steady stream of smoke finally has a safe way to exit the vehicle. Safely contained inside a metal bucket, a warm, crackling fire finally breathes life back into the freezing survivors. As the soothing heat fills the bus, she pulls out her smartphone, connecting to the spotty apocalyptic network. Suddenly, she gasps, immense astonishment on her face. She shows him a newly uploaded post on the survivor community board. It's directed exactly at them. He leans in closely, reading the message from the very people who dropped the frying pan to save them. The mysterious saviors are asking if they are the two survivors in the bus, looking to make contact. Wanting to verify it isn't a trap, she carefully peers out the frosted window to check the building's surroundings. She spots the exact white Sonata the poster mentioned parked outside the convenience store below. With their identities confirmed, he stares at the glowing screen as the final message drops a massive bombshell. The saviors are asking to join their group. A survivor cautiously slid open his window, hoping the frozen streets had finally quieted down. But the apocalypse was full of terrifying surprises. A mutated zombie leaped straight up the side of the building, clinging to the brick wall like an insect. Panicking, the man grabbed the heaviest thing he could find, a dumbbell, and hurled it with all his might at the monster's head. He collapsed against the windowsill, gasping for air as his heart hammered wildly against his ribs. The creature plummeted to the ground below, leaving a streak of dark blood on the frosted glass. Online forums were already exploding with terrifying theories, questioning if these new freaks were evolving into Parker-using mutants. But the chilling reality was much simpler. Some zombies were retaining the muscle memory and skills they possessed before they turned. Outside, the freezing apocalypse continued its relentless assault, burying the city under an unforgiving blanket of snow. Knowing they couldn't stay hidden forever, the duo geared up, ready to face the frozen hellscape once again. They cautiously stepped out into the freezing wind, navigating through the wreckage of the shattered city. Bloodstained zombies still wandered the streets, their rotting bodies miraculously unbothered by the deadly frost. Every step required absolute silence, their eyes constantly scanning the blizzard for any sudden movement. Through the blinding snow, a figure approached, a young woman bundled up in a thick winter coat. She looked completely normal, an innocent survivor just trying to find her way to safety. Cian immediately recognized her, whispering excitedly to her companion that this was the person they were looking for. The woman offered a warm, desperate smile, while Cian couldn't help but admire her heavy padded jacket in this freezing nightmare. They lowered their weapons slightly, feeling a brief glimmer of hope at finding another sane human being. But the apocalypse never allowed for moments of peace. Out of nowhere, a lurking zombie launched itself at the woman with terrifying speed. In a spray of crimson snow, the monster sank its teeth deep into her neck, silencing her screams instantly. The duo froze in pure horror, watching the innocent survivor get brutally torn apart right before their eyes. The sickening sound of tearing flesh echoed through the silent street as the monster gorged on its fresh prey. Overwhelmed by the brutal sight, he clamped a hand over his mouth, fighting the sudden urge to vomit. The pristine snow around the attack quickly turned a deep, morbid red. The sheer suddenness of the violence sent a chilling reminder straight to his core. One wrong step meant an instant, agonizing death. Forcing himself to look away, he gripped his spear tightly, adrenaline flushing the nausea from his system. They began to carefully back away, desperate not to draw the feeding monster's attention. He took the lead, keeping his weapon raised and his eyes darting across the snowy ruins. Seeing Cian completely paralyzed by the trauma, he grabbed her shoulder, urgently whispering that they had to move immediately. His firm grip grounded her, pulling her mind back from the brink of total panic. He gave her a resolute look, silently promising that he wouldn't let them end up like the woman in the snow. He kept his hand reassuringly on her arm, leading her away from the grisly scene. Taking a deep breath, Cian nodded, her survival instincts finally kicking back in. They pressed forward through the biting wind, leaving the horrific tragedy far behind them. To avoid the unpredictable dangers of the surface, they decided to take their chances underground, heading toward a subway station. The dark stairwell looked like the throat of a massive beast, swallowing the faint light from the blizzard. He imagined the hundreds of daily commuters who must have been trapped down there when the terrifying outbreak first started. The surface was far too exposed, full of wandering monsters and lethal temperatures. They took one last look at the freezing city before committing to the plunge into the dark. With their flashlights cutting through the gloom, they cautiously descended into the subterranean tunnels. At the bottom of the stairs, they found a body, completely frozen solid and covered in a thick layer of frost. He expected to find a horde waiting for them, but the suffocating silence caught him off guard. He held up a hand, signaling for absolute quiet as they checked their surroundings. The total absence of roaming zombies was unsettling, putting his nerves deeply on edge. He shined his light on a nearby convenience store, deciding it was worth scavenging for any leftover supplies. The station corridors were completely empty, devoid of even a single wandering corpse. He pushed his way into the ruined store, sweeping his flashlight across the deep shadows. The shelves had been heavily looted, but he carefully checked every aisle, just in case. Cian cautiously pushed open the door to the storage room, shining her light into the cramped space. Sitting perfectly arranged on a dusty shelf were 3 uncrushed cans of soda. It wasn't an accident. Someone had clearly survived down here and left them intentionally, proving they weren't alone in the dark. But their desperate hopes of finding warm clothes were quickly dashed. The clothing racks had been completely stripped bare by whoever had passed through before them. Disappointed but not defeated, they stepped back out into the eerie subway corridor. The deeper they walked, the darker and more oppressive the atmosphere became. Cian suddenly stopped, pulling out her phone to show him something she had documented earlier. It was a photograph she had quickly snapped before leaving their previous safe house. The image showed a desperate, terrified message scrawled on a wall by a survivor who was clearly losing their mind to fear. Reading the hopeless words sent a shiver down his spine, realizing the intense psychological toll this nightmare was taking on everyone. They pushed further into the maintenance tunnels, the heavy darkness threatening to swallow them whole. Cian swept her light across the concrete walls, anxiously looking for any signs of movement. But the environment was too clean. There were no bodies, no blood splatters, no signs of a struggle anywhere. He raised his weapon, his instinct screaming that this unnatural emptiness meant something terrifying had cleared the area. The beam of their flashlight suddenly reflected off massive metal doors in the darkness ahead. A dead, silent subway train sat stranded on the tracks, waiting in the pitch black like a massive steel tomb.